How y'all doing this evening? July 21st. Heading up to the lunar eclipse next week, next Friday. How you all feeling? Hope you're doing good. Let's see what we got here. Y'all having a good... Uh-oh, looks like Unbiased and On the Fence is streaming. 8 at 8, power of 8 at 8. We're heading up to the Lion's Gate here on 8/8. This week are going to be some intense energies flowing into this realm from the higher realms. See what we got here. Trying to load up the chat. Okay. Been having a lot of technological issues. So let's see what we have here. Hope you can hear me okay. View on watch page. There we go. Oops. Alright. Having a little bit of background noise. Let's see what we got here. Oops. So I was feeling a little off earlier today. Something wasn't sitting right, something wasn't feeling right. So a friend had called me thanking me for some shilajit that I gave them. Now shilajit there comes from a couple locations, comes from the mountains. Hold on 1 second here. See what we got here. Let's see what we got here. Alright, so we're going to talk about the Lyran starship, but first off, I wanted to recommend anyone that might be feeling off, feeling out of balance. I'd recommend element called Shilajit. That's Shilagit. It's been translated as Destroyer of Weakness, Conqueror of Mountains. I'll put a link in the video, in the description below this video after the stream's ended. Hey Bella, how you doing? So it's like a black tar. It comes from the Himalayan mountains. I got mine from Russia, from Mongolia, from the Altai mountains, and I like to put it in with pu'er tea. This thing is a crack. Pu'er is black tea. It's a fermented tea. It's great for the stomach, good for digestion, and it helps ground into the earth. So all you need is a pea size, so you can buy it in bulk from Etsy, or Amazon sells it. You can find it on eBay. But pu'er is spelled P-U-E-R-H, pu'er, or P-U-E-R. There's a space or a dash, P-U. You can get that on Amazon. I'll put a link for that in the description below. I'm trained in the 5 elements of tea, and black would be like for the earth. Sometimes you see it for kidney, bladder, but it's very good for the stomach and grounding. To help ground you into the earth, especially if you feel like you're flying away, feeling off, if you have vertigo, spinning. Shilajit is really good for that too, and any kind of weakness in the chi. So I wanted to talk about the Sandra Walter put out a video yesterday called the Lyra Starship from the Lyrans. The Lyrans are the feline beings from the Vega star system, where the original experiments for creating a divine human DNA template began. Now there's also the sound. Part of this template is the hue sound. Hue was one of the original names for God. Hue, like color, light. Hue, you can sound the hue sound. Hue. That'll open up the crown, the 7th seal. So this is from Sandra, talking about the Lyrans, that they were a consistent part of her journey, and they showed her interdimensional stargates. They're also referred to as the white lion beings, since they have white hair and have a very regal lion-like appearance. 2 pairs of Lyrans presented while doing gate work on Mount Shasta, 2 female and 2 male. They offered a blessing and divine human DNA activation for this transformational passage, which is the eclipse corridor, the eclipse portals that have been opening through July into next Friday, which will be the blood moon, the full blood moon, and a full lunar eclipse. It'll be the longest eclipse this decade. I think it's about an hour and a half. So as she recorded this, she heard choirs of Lyrans singing the tones and words, and then she went to bed. Her cells quivered with the harmonics and felt a deep sense of peace, unity, and unconditional love. They asked to begin with light ship tones, the sounds we hear when the ships and beings are near. They work closely with the Syrians, and I feel the language reflects that influence. Light language is not translatable word by word. In my experience, it is tones, sensations, or geometry interpreted by the conduit to convey messages, activations, or intentions. ET contacts speak telepathically, and yet this language has flowed through us for decades. It seems to be shifting, taking on a new level with the presence of source codes. These harmonics are a crystalline bridge of their own kind. This message contains codes of balance for this powerful phase, embodiment, and DNA restoration. The Lyrans remind us to practice toning and harmonics in order to remember how to alter form with our pure intent and voices. The skill of moving, building, creating reality through sound is returning to us. Hopefully this transmission captures the harmony which many of us have with this kind of contact. The sound journey is light encoded to assist your ascension process. So you can check this out on sandrawalter.com. I'm going to play this video for you to it's about 10 minutes long. Make this full screen here. Alrighty. So sorry for any background noise. I think one of these fans in the computer are going haywire. So just one of the other technological issues we're dealing with. So as you saw in that video, Sandra does Sunday meditations. I think, what did it say, like 8, where is it? Boom, 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 boom. Oh, but that was pretty nice. That was pretty cool. Well, let's see. Okay, so yeah, 8:11 a.m., 11:11 a.m. and 5:11 p.m. Pacific time. I think that global for 33 minutes. So you can do that with Sandra or by yourself. And so while this video was playing, I took a step outside, and there are some amazing clouds right now. I saw a cloud that looked like a light ship. Then I smelled it. It smelled like frankincense in the air. So I love that smell of frankincense and myrrh and Palo Santo. So let me jump on here. Thanks, Chris. So after Chris, after awakening for 2 years, you feel like you know nothing, a fraud at times, an ego trap. Maybe this should probably okay. So one thing to keep in mind is that in this realm we live in a paradox. So there's a lot to know and there's nothing to know. Consciousness is always expanding and learning and transforming, transcending. So the Zen master, there's one Zen master that we train with that I think they wrote a book called this, but they would say only don't know. They're, you know, the Zen, in the Zen school, it's like you learn a lot, you practice a lot until you have an awakening, and then you let it all go. You realize that it was all just an illusion anyways, and then you can just have fun with all the information. So I know sometimes we feel like frauds because we feel like we don't have all the answers, but truthfully it's just being true to yourself and living from the heart. As long as you live from the heart, there's nothing to pretend and there's nothing to learn. But in this paradox that we live in this matrix, you know, everything we learn, every book you read, every lecture you listen to, it's like putting a piece of a puzzle together, and the more you learn, the more that picture becomes clear. But in the end, we let it all go, you know, because you are the truth, you are the Buddha, you are an awakened being. The only difference between you and the Buddha is that the Buddha knew that they were awakened. He would say, in the heavens and on the earth, I alone am the world-honored one. So basically, he realized that we already are pure awareness, that there's really nothing to know. So in this paradox, people think in terms of black and white, right and wrong, left and right, up and down. But we must realize that there's, in between the black and white, there are 50 shades of gray. And in the Buddhist philosophy and Taoist, there's a concept that emptiness is form and form is emptiness. Yeah. So that's the paradox. People think, how could something that's empty be form and something form that be empty? So basically it's that one cannot exist without the other. Black cannot exist without white, and white cannot exist without black. It is so when you see the yin and the yang, you'll see the black circle inside the white and the white circle within the black, because black contains white and white contains black. It's just like emptiness contains form and form has emptiness within it. So Yeah, the game ending on July 31st. I actually put out a video about that because Lisa Harrison and her team are getting that as an end date, like the end of linear time and the 7th wave. That is a potential. It is a possibility. It is. There is a timeline where the end of linear time is on July 31st. Now, it may not be this timeline, but there is a possibility of it. I don't like to put dates out there, but the blood moon is a major eclipse, lunar eclipse, next Friday the 27th. Now, I was listening to Magenta Pixie earlier today, and she talked about how for the light workers in the light community, July 26th is like New Year's Eve, and the 27th is like New Year's Day. So there's definitely going to be a major shift, a major portal open, 26, 27, 28, the 31st. Let me see. That's Tuesday in 2 weeks. That is a potential for the 7th and final wave of energy to hit. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of information out there. Some of it seems conflicting, but they're all just different perspectives of the same information. They're different. We call perception, perspectives. So yeah, sometimes there is no failure. I know a lot of people say like they feel like they failed at living in the moment, living in the heart. But just realize that you cannot fail. You've already won. You already are the pure awareness. You already are this moment. You can only live in this moment. The mind searches in the future, the past, but people are finally realizing that living in the now, living in this moment, you are affecting the past, the future. You're affecting 7 generations in the past, 7 generations in the future. So that's why it's very important in this time, at the end of time, in the end times, some people might call it. I kind of explain it like the end of linear time, the end of the sine wave, the rising and falling. It's more of spatial time. We're transitioning into that feminine, the spatial, the grounding, the magnetics. I also want to talk about Magenta Pixie has put out a call to all truthers, light workers, and starseeds to unite, to come together, because there's been conflicts within certain communities, and that is part of my mission, is to bring the truthers and light workers and starseeds together to help manifest this new earth, because there's conflict within these communities. And in these times, it's time for us to come together. And I'm a little bit of everything and a whole lot of nothing. So I don't label myself as anything. I've trained with Buddhist masters, Taoist masters, shamans, healers, sages. So I use something from everything and create my own philosophy. Oh, you're in Sedona, Chris? That's awesome. My Sifu lives close to my Taoist Sifu, Ching Feng Dao Shi. Max Christensen lives by Sedona. I was out there a few years back training with the Sifu in an art called Kunlun, Kunlun, and I loved it there. I definitely want to head back out there soon. Sedona. Yeah. Yeah, anything that makes you feel inadequate is not the truth. That's part of the illusion. You are exactly where you need to be. You know, you're exactly where you're meant to be, and it is perfect. We're Hey Nanette, thanks for joining me. Yeah, I was joking about the Unbiased on the fence. He has a lot more followers than me, but it's cool. I mean, I appreciate. I love his channel. I love his his shows. But yeah, we all have our own message, and they're all interlinked. They're all combined. You know, we all put our everyone's here to lift all light workers, all starseeds, and then in the process all humanity. I like to say my team of 144, because in part of my mission is bringing 144 light workers, starseeds, and truthers together to help uplift all of humanity. Yeah, a lot of people, Bella, are tired. You know, some people it's chronic fatigue, because one reason for this is as these shifts happen and as the magnetics of the earth minimize and the Schumann resonance raises, it's affecting people's adrenal glands. Our nervous systems are getting more sensitive, especially starseeds, because they don't feel like they're from this realm, which they're really not. This is just a temporary place, you know, the temporary avatar. So as the nervous system gets more sensitive and the feelings get more intense, it can release adrenaline into the bloodstream, and then it makes the body more tired. But also, the body needs more rest. There's our DNA shifting as these cosmic rays are coming in, what we call the cosmic radiation, the cosmic rays. And these frequencies are coming in. Plus, we're dealing with toxins in the environment. We're dealing with these high frequencies from technologies, so it's pushing on everyone's threshold. Hey Bella, 51 years old. You definitely could be a starseed, because it's any age. There's no age to that Dolores Cannon talked about. These different waves of energy and starseeds coming into this realm to help all humanity, but yeah, there's no age. You know, there's starseeds that are 100 years old. There's starseeds that are 1 year old. That basically, the starseeds have been labeled as beings that are from either other timelines or other realms. Let's see. Yeah, so Chris says, sounds like I'm being too hard on myself, which, sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. So I teach people the concept of being kind to yourself, and every human being has a child within themselves, an inner child that is looking for love and affection and attention. So it's good to see that inner, you can see yourself within yourself as you were as a little child, and send that child love. See yourself hugging that child and saying that I know you're there, because you're the only one in the whole universe that can give that child love, and it can understand and experience love from you. No one else has that power. So in the Taoists, they say there's a little boy and a little girl within themselves. Nice. Nanette, November 7th, 11-7. That's my brother's numbers. We asked Chief Golden Light Eagle once what the symbolism of 11-7 or 7-11, all numbers mirror each other. So my brother was born in 71, 1129, which is a 7, the 9 and 2, 711, and 11-7 are power numbers, and that they also show us to pay attention and to see what's going on here in November. 11-3 and 3-11's another powerful. Hey Lucy, thanks for joining us. So yeah, there is no failures, like Cheryl says, no failures, no regrets. There's no failures, only lessons to be learned to help us along our journey. I know it's easy to fall into that trap, feeling like a failure, because sometimes we're our worst judge, jury, and executioner. 754. So yeah, part of the shift is healing that inner child, because to become a healer, most healers were wounded spirits, wounded warriors. That's how you learn to compassion, and most starseeds have suffered greatly in this realm. We had to go through that torture program, that suffering program, to help transcend the suffering and to help heal others that are on this path of ascension, which we are all on that path. I wanted to do a video about rainbow body, because a lot of people talking about the event that's coming soon, which I do believe in some event. There's the event waves, because as you practice any art, there's different levels that you get to. Sometimes you plateau at a certain level and never transcend beyond that level. Sometimes it takes going to a new teacher, but it's all about practicing an art. And in the school, or I should say the system or the lineage that I teach and practice, called Kunlun, there's the concept of what's called rainbow body, and you'll hear a lot of people talking about it. David Wilcock talks about that, about the rainbow body. He teaches about that, and my teacher, the rainbow body, that symbolism and word really came from the Tibetans. They're called Jalus, which came from Guru Rinpoche. My teacher's also a reincarnated High Lama. But if you look up rainbow body, that's, in the Christians they call it the coat of many colors. See, Dzogchen, rainbow body. Jalus, or Jalu, is a level of realization. This may or may not be accompanied by the rainbow body phenomenon. The rainbow body phenomenon is a religious topic which has been treated fairly seriously for centuries, included in the modern era. So here's an image of rainbow body. This is Guru Rinpoche. So most people that talk about rainbow body don't even know the story. My teacher taught us the story of rainbow body. We call gold dragon body in our lineage. All forms of spiritual practices have a form of rainbow body. Even the Christians, they call it the coat of many colors. In the Jewish tradition, they call it indestructible diamond body. In Buddhism, in some Buddhist arts, this is a Buddhist art too, they call rainbow body, but like in the Zen Buddhist, they call So as you can see, Guru Rinpoche, yes, it does. Most people are feel that something is coming, but not the end. Yeah, there is no end because there was no beginning. You know, one end is the beginning of something new. Yeah, a lot of people are seeing, they say eyes to the skies because the changes are being really noticed in the sky. Some people are seeing cracks in the firmament, or the firmament is the dome over the earth, the electromagnetic field that surrounds the earth. So this, let's see, can you see that? Yeah, so rainbow body. They call it that because let me make this bigger here. When the Lama, the High Lama, or the Guru is close to transitioning to the other side, they sit in what some traditions call the death pose, and it's a different pose for the different schools. I mean, there's really no set way, but as you can see, he was sitting in like a meditation, a full lotus, and this is a rendition from one of his disciples. And what they'll sit, their organs will stop, and for I believe 7 days, 4 to 7 days, their bodies will stay soft and warm. And I believe it was on the 7th day, the disciples saw these rainbow lights spiraling out from the Guru's dantians. We call it a dantian, which is like a chakra. You know, there's three. There's a lower dantian, middle, and upper dantian in the Taoist practices, which is past, present, future, body, mind, spirit. So the students saw these rainbows emitting from the dantians, and then a flash of white light, and then the body was gone, and what was left behind was parts of the robe, some bone, and ash, and they ground those up and turned them into pills that the future disciples would consume to take on the energy of that guru. So our teacher says that that 1% every 100 years can attain rainbow body. It's a form of alchemy too, like the alchemists when they talk about transmuting or transforming lead to gold. Lead symbolizes a 3D body, the gross matter, the solid matter, and gold symbolizes the light body. You can't see the light body, that's why the body disappears, because light, that pure white bliss, that pure white light, is not visible to the eyes. We see what light reflects off of it, or we see light as it goes through a prism to create the electromagnetic spectrum. Isn't that cool? You know, just think of that word, the electromagnetic spectrum. That's the 7 colors of the rainbow, and then those 7 colors expand and transform into the billions of colors that we see. So that's like the 7 dwarves, you know, the 7. You see they each had a different color in the rainbow, and then Snow White was the pure white light. Like Walter Russell would say, God is the still white magnetic light at the center of all things. The center of your being is that pure snow white, that pure white light, that one light, the source light, the divine light, which that one light splits into the 7 colors of the rainbow body. So rainbow body is transitioning back to that still white light, fully conscious, fully aware. and there is a Zen master Benkai would say that all beings are born perfectly awakened Buddhas. And then there's also the concept that there is no death because there is no birth. You just always were, always will be that pure white. So, yeah, it is beautiful to see a person's inner child. That's when they light up. Because most beings in this realm today have a broken, what we symbolically say a broken spirit. I mean, you can't really break a spirit, but our perception is broken. So it's like a caged human animal. Most people are like, feel like they're trapped in a cage, feeling anxiety, because like a horse that, you know, is taken from the wild or at birth, and they break their spirit by staying on their back for a certain amount of time. The human, to break their spirit, which means that then they can ride it, because you can't ride on a wild horse's back. It's they will throw you into next week. So as you see, once a horse's spirit's broken, they become very docile. I mean, they love to still run and that, just like humans still like to go fast and run, but most of the time stay, you know, in this docile state. You know, that's the whole system, the matrix, the archonic system has been transformed and programmed, we can say, to break the human spirit, especially as children. And Walter Russell would teach, like, the education system is set up to program and to break people's spirits and to suppress and destroy the creativity, that wild child spirit. I mean, you see children, I mean, they'll weave flowers into a headdress and dance around like a shaman, you know. Awesome, Lord Jameson. Lord Jameson. It's a cool name. That's cool. Yeah, that we're looking at trying to work on some free energy devices. You know, I love Tesla's work. I was watching Marina Jacobi, who's been channeling information from, I believe, the Pleiadians about these technologies based on frequency and sound. Walter Russell, he really knew all about the octaves, the different octaves of frequency. I have one of his books here. Let me see if I can grab it. You really, if you can get a copy, pick up a copy of this book. This is one of the greatest books ever written. The Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe by Glenn Clark. It's only about 57, 58 pages, but it will blow your mind. Walter Russell was friends with Tesla. He was friends with Mark Twain. One of the great, if you've never heard of him, this is one of the greatest minds that ever walked in this realm. Here he is here. Man of science, philosophy. He was a sculptor, friends with many of the presidents. Mark Twain, you gotta see this. He started in Swanoa, Virginia, the School of Philosophy and Science here. But check out this. This is a sculpture he did. It's life size of. There's Mark Twain. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little blurry. And characters from his books. This was all life size. He did it all by hand, carving, which was. And he was an artist, a scientist, philosopher, architect, engineer. Here's a bust of Mark Twain. They were good friends. And this book too, also The Secret of Light, I highly recommend. It's another amazing book. And then this, Atomic Suicide, what radioactivity is, why and how it kills, and what to do about it. He was really against nuclear power, and he had methods on free energy and, you know, how to tap in. His wife Leo, she was named after Lao Tzu, but they pronounced it Leo. Maybe the British. Here's a letter signed, written and signed from Leo. Not to me, but I was lucky enough to find a copy that had this. I'm going to read this to you because she wrote a book called Love, which is another phenomenal book. But the cause and solution for man's dilemma regarding the destructive elements of radioactivity and pollution are contained in this book. Its deep purpose is to unfold not only vital New Age scientific concepts, but to enlighten man to the urgent need of unity of purpose for the very survival of man and the planet that sustains him. She wrote, I mean, this book was written, let's see, what year? 1957 was the first edition, then the second edition, 81. I believe she wrote this in 1981. They're both transitioned on to the other side. But I've always enjoyed his work for many years and have learned a lot from both of them. They were both great teachers and humanitarians and just brilliant human beings. Yeah, definitely. That's why I'll call you LJ. He says that science technology proves what you are saying to be correct, as well as our neurotransmitters emit measurable amounts of electrical discharge when we think, and that's why, like the gurus say, thoughts are things, they are energies, they are frequencies. And yeah, Walter Russell, the man who tapped the secrets of the universe. Yes. So let me see if I can he wrote several books. You can get some of his books on Amazon, and I found some on eBay. Let's see. So this is just a paragraph from the man who tapped the secrets of the universe. He was written out of history because he taught that all beings are one with God and that God is within all beings. So, and he was a Christian. So I believe that every man, no matter how humble, is manifesting God as his messenger. Therefore, every man should be worthy of his messengership by manifesting his source to the very best of his ability, whether he runs the elevator for an industry or as its president. I believe that every man can multiply his own ability by almost constant wordless realization of his unity with his source. I have myself made that feeling so much a part of me that I actually feel myself to be an extension of the source, that my works are not my own but interpretations of the source. I believe that such constant realization keeps one so exalted with inspiration that one is thus insulated from the thousands of distractions which lead one away from his own design of life, and thus protects him from petty temptation, from disease, and from those man harms which constantly come to those who are not thus one with God. I believe that such a constant realization ennobles one automatically. One's stature is greater, one's step more elastic, one's aura more powerful, and it makes other people see that light in one's eyes, which attracts people to him who has it. So there you go. I mean, this is a man that was teaching that we are one with the source, we are one with God, and that we are manifesting God's will through our actions. Yeah, definitely, LJ. There is an electronic warfare directed against light workers, but we are protected. I put out a video the other day from Cobra talking about these scalar, SCALAR weapons that the reptilian and I believe Anunnaki have used against Lightworkers, especially to create rifts in the Sacred Union. If you look up my video, I think it was Cobra, the Sacred Union. They're trying to destroy all the sacred unions between the feminine, masculine energies in this realm. Yes. So we were talking about bringing truthers, lightworkers, starseeds, so which got me off on another tangent about you know, I tend not to label myself as Buddhist or Taoist or whatever. You know, people say, well, what are you? What do you follow? I follow everything and nothing. Yeah, there's my teacher who's the Sifu, the Taoist Sifu, Max Christensen. You can check him out on primordialalchemist.com. He's also a physicist, but not by trade, but just he can tap into the source, just like Walter Russell. And he talks about you know, you could build what's called a Faraday cage, which blocks, you know, all these frequencies and protects you from any of these electromagnetic weapons. So let's see, Faraday was a scientist. See, just look up Faraday cage. It's a, or some people call it a Faraday shield, is an enclosure used to block electromagnetic fields. A Faraday shield may be formed by a continuous covering of a conductive material, or in the case of a Faraday cage, by a mesh of such materials. A grounded metal screen surrounding a piece of equipment to exclude electrostatic and electromagnetic influences. So Faraday was a scientist, let's see, Michael Faraday, British scientist who studied electromagnetism and electrochemistry. It's a branch of physical chemistry that studies the relationship between electricity as a measurable and quantitative phenomenon and an identifiable chemical change with either electricity, considered an outcome of a particular chemical change, or vice versa. So he was a pretty brilliant guy, born in 1791 and died in 1867 at 75 years old, and lived in the United Kingdom. He established the basis of the concept of electromagnetic field in physics, which is a physical field produced by electrically charged objects. So this guy really knew what he was doing. So check out Faraday cages. Now, if you know, you can build them pretty cheaply. Get the cheapest conductive metal, you know, and sleep in a coffin of metal. But people put Faraday, they're selling Faraday cages that you can put like your cell phone in and other equipment. So if you look up cheap conductive metal or materials, copper is probably one of the cheapest, and aluminum. Aluminum is really cheap. You can build a Faraday cage out of aluminum. Now you could sleep in a Faraday cage or meditate. You'll notice, yeah, that's right, potato chip bags were, you know, they're just aluminum foil, but I'm not sure, tin foil hat, I'm not sure, I'm sure tin has some kind of conductivity, copper and silver. Let's see, thank you Google, does tin conduct electricity? So there is probably some kind of yeah, I'm sure taking your battery out, you know, usually will make the electrical device inactive, so that probably would work. But you can wrap any device in aluminum foil and that would block the frequencies coming off of it. As long as the whole device is enclosed within the metal. So we were talking about rainbow body here. Let's see, yes, the rainbow body. So many moons ago, the Taoist masters realized that we were in a type of program. We were in a type of simulation. There's an ancient book called the Ching, spelled I and then CHING, which meant the Book of Fortune or the Book of Changes. There's been thousands of books written describing the I Ching. Now you see the code is 64. I put a video out a couple months ago called The Matrix and the Code of 64, because 64 you see throughout all these ancient cultures. Nassim Haramein talks about within the flower of life is 64 tetrahedrons. Check out Flower of Life. Drunvalo Melchizedek, who's in Sedona, wrote a couple books, 2 volumes called The Flower of Life. It's found throughout all ancient cultures. This is what it looks like here. So there's Nassim talks a lot about this. You see this on the under the foot of the lion on a ball in the Chinese culture. You see it in ancient Egypt. You see it all over the world. The sacred geometry. And there's 64 codes. Now, the I Ching, like if you look it up in Wikipedia, there's many volumes written about these 64 hexagrams. See, here they are. Here's all the different hexagrams, and this is where the person, I think the man that created binary code, got it from the I Ching, which this is the original source talking about yin and yang. Yin being feminine, which is here the broken line, and yang being the solid line. So you see on switches the 1 and the 0, which means on off, obviously, which in binary code it's on off, you know, 1 is on, 0 is off. So it's the 1 would be the yang, which is on, the 0 being the yang off, the feminine, the masculine on, or form, the feminine yin, the off, the emptiness. So as you can see, there's 64 different combinations, and they could tell your future based on these 64 codes. The first one being Qian, and the second Kun. So the first is 6 solid lines, so hexagrams, hex being 6, and grams being images, 6, or diagrams, symbols, symbolism. See, 64 hexagrams, so the first is 6 solid lines, so that's 6 yang creates this symbol, and there's been thousands of commentaries and explanations and books written about these 64 codes. And if you look at it, you know, think of the checkerboard or the chessboard is 64 squares, and black and white, that's yin and yang. Because they realize with 64 codes, 64 in our DNA, the double helix, each helix has 32 codes or codons, creating 64. So with that 64 are virtually infinite combinations or simulations. Just like a computer 64-bit, you can virtually create infinite simulations with 64 bits of code, obviously combined in different ways. Yeah, so LJ, it is pretty profound. Like if you look up cymatics, that's the sound frequencies that form all the symbolism. So my Sifu teaches that from the void, from the original stillness or emptiness or void, what we call void, came sound. Even in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. Now different cultures have different sounds of that. Some say Om, some say Hu, some say Nuri. That original sound got to such a frequency where it transformed into light, what we call light, which is really just another frequency. There's the still light, and then there's the simulation of movement light. And Walter Russell, if you read The Secret of Light, which is a phenomenal book, talks about that light really doesn't move. We say the speed of light, but even that is part of the illusion, part of the simulation. And he talks about like it's a mirrored effect. It appears to be moving, just like a moving picture and film. It appears to be moving, but it's really just still frames played over and over, where perception makes it appear to be moving. So these are all just appearances. That's why the guru will say, how do you know the difference? Awesome. Thanks for joining us, LJ. That's cool. You live on the farm, doing some farm work and meditate. Yeah, enjoy your work. Enjoy the time on the farm. Yeah, I'm glad to be filling in some pieces of the puzzle. Yeah, every bit of information just is another piece of the puzzle. And the puzzle is infinite, virtually. But it's nice to have confirmations, and it's nice to expand consciousness and expand our picture of reality, or the internal map of reality. It's constantly shifting. So the guru will say, how do you know the difference between what is real and what is not real? And they'll say, what is real never changes. Doesn't, just like truth doesn't change. Things that are true changes, because it's true today that there's leaves on the tree, but in the winter there's no leaves. So in that moment it's true that there's no leaves. That's why people get stuck in these perceptions. Like I try to explain to people that everything is a paradox, that no one's right, no one's wrong, or everyone's right, everyone's wrong. You know, it depends on how you look at things, where you're at in this realm. So part of my job, you know, I resonate with all forms of perception, you know, what we call the truther movement. I spent years studying conspiracies and truths and see things from a higher level. My life was a conspiracy. Most people wouldn't believe it if I told them. Or I shouldn't say my life, because life is truth. I'm talking about my story. The story that this avatar has projected into this realm. But I'm also resonate with the Lightworkers and the Starseeds. So it's possible to be all things. So part of my job is bringing all these together to unite the Truthers and the Lightworkers and the Starseeds. So I'm working on that's awesome, Lucy. The rainbow body. Working on trying to bring all these all of these worlds together. Yeah, the flat earth is mind-blowing. Yes, Megan, I mean, we have to look at all aspects. I mean, the flat earth movement is exposing a lot of these conspiracies and these, I mean, obviously we've been lied to, and it would be easy. I don't know why the human race is debating something that can be easily proven. Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it. Debating something that can be easily proven. You know, all you'd have to do is circumnavigate Antarctica, and depending on how long it took, you can determine you know, if the Antarctica would surround the Earth or if it's a continent at the bottom of a globe. I mean, it's be very easy to prove. Yes, bless you too, my friends, everyone watching, Cheryl, Chris. Let's see. Yeah, my story is pretty weird and wild, but I can't tell my full story just to protect my family, but it's definitely been a trip. But part of my story was, you know, I trained with many masters over the years. I try to live a simple life and drink tea. I've trained in the 5 elements of tea, but I've trained in monastery and temple in the Zen Buddhist. Zen just means meditation in Japanese. It's Chan, C-H-A-N, in Chinese. So I've had many teachers, and I teach an art now called Kunlun. I've taught, trained in Qigong and some Shaolin arts and Tai Chi and Zen Buddhism, Taoism. And part of my story, you know, because of some torture I went through as a child, I took many years of healing and traveled and trained with many masters, and now I teach a small group. I'm not allowed to teach online. I could teach privately through Skype, but it's a protected lineage that my teacher started, my seafood, that I've trained the last 7, 8, 9 years. At times all becoming irrelevant. But yeah, we all have a story, you know, and I'm sure everyone has an interesting story, regardless of if you think it's interesting or not. But I've always been, you know, even as a child, there were 2 things that I asked Creator Source for, was freedom and truth. So I've always been a seeker of truth. I've read hundreds and hundreds of books and been to many masters and many teachers, and you know, I still learn every day, still read, and you know, just because it's fun. You know, I'm interested in knowledge, the truth. Gnosis means knowledge, which is G-N-O-S-I-S. The Gnostics were the people of knowledge and truth, the ones that wrote the Bibles and the spiritual teachings. But now there's this concept of time traveling into the past, leaving, you know, our future selves traveling through time, leaving us messages throughout time in these ancient texts and ancient architecture. And so this matrix is weird. So getting back to rainbow body, so that's ultimate freedom, is returning to light body, fully conscious, fully aware. And this concept of some of the secret societies and spiritual practices taught that they made it secret because they knew that only so many people can attain rainbow body in this story, in this matrix, because you can't have a matrix without souls, without consciousness, without stories linking together and connecting. And Barry Long would teach us the concept, have you suffered enough? Because until you've suffered enough, you're not even going to try to free yourself from the prison. If you didn't know you were in prison, you wouldn't even try to free yourself. Not that it matters either way, but most spiritual practices are about how to end suffering. The Buddha would say life is suffering, but I don't believe life is suffering, because I believe life is another word for love. Life is truth. Life is the source. But I think, that was a translation from the ancient Sanskrits. Life is suffering. But I believe it would be better translated to say living is suffering, or the program is suffering. The story is suffering. That life is eternal. Life is the light. So this story of suffering, which is part of duality, part of the 3D matrix, how do we end that? How do we end this cycle of birth and death? How do we end the trap, the reincarnation cycle? Because the Ascended Masters are the ones that freed themselves. They were rainbow body at one time. Yeah, pain is bliss and bliss is pain. They're one and the same. Yes, I do believe that we wrote our own story. We did choose to be here, especially in this time of the shift, of these, what people call the event or rapture, ascension, whatever name you want to give this transition from 3D to 4D into the 5D into the 4th density. But it's not that these secret societies hijacked it. There's a concept that say the fall from grace, or being kicked out of Eden. I think it was Alberto Villaldo that once said that the shaman he trained with, I believe he was Mayan, would say that the natives didn't get kicked out of the garden. They still lived in that paradise. It wasn't until, the Spaniards and the conquistadors and the British, French, whatever, the white man came, when we say the white man, and then took away their culture, I guess you could say it, took away their freedom, put them on reservations, or locked them in the prisons, or whatever, enslaved. And yes, your guides are correct, Megan. Welcome to 5D as we know it. Yeah, this, it's all part of our perception. 5D would be what the ancients called Eden, or Shambhala, or the Crystal Palace. There's many names, Valhalla. In Taoism, the Crystal Palace is the center of the brain, where the pineal gland and the pituitary gland rest. It is the still white magnetic light. And that this concept in Christianity, the fall from grace, was when, when you think of fall, the fall of man, was when we lowered our frequency from that 5D into the 3D to experience a different aspect of ourselves, to experience part of that duality. and then we bring back that knowledge to the higher realms. And there's the concept of, you know, the light balances the dark and the dark balances the light. You know, there's people starving here while there's people becoming obese over there. You know, more food, that, you know, they throw away food when these people beg for food. You know, it's like the more someone suffers here, the more the spirit's lifted over there. So another thing I wanted to talk about, let's see, so yeah, the secret societies, you know, the secret societies were hijacked by, you know, these lower 4D entities, what some people call the reptilians or the draconians, where they just, see, the thing is, it's kind of, you know, if we call this like a prison planet, because at one time humans could come and go as they pleased, but once we became trapped in this form, in this story, in this avatar, we couldn't leave at will, which would be like astral projection or, you know, out of body type experience. That I lost my train of thought, but I was talking about the archons, and the thing is, okay, yeah, the prison, this prison type concept, to free yourself, so say this is like a prison, this realm, or this body, this form, this entity. To attain rainbow body would be to free yourself from this prison, or from this cycle of birth and death, for this reincarnation cycle. So the thing is, think of someone that's in a prison, like a man-made prison. Okay, it's hard to escape, but people do escape, but a very small percentage. They figure out how to dig under a wall, or they figure out, you know, the guard's not at this doorway at certain hours, so we can climb this wall at a certain hour. When the, you know, the people are smart, you know, people are intelligent, they figure ways out of that prison. So if someone escapes out of a prison and they're like, okay, they dug under the wall, what do? They put guards along that wall, they dig the walls deeper, they put electrified fences, they make it harder and harder to escape. They seal those passages. So this, you'll see this concept in Hollywood movies. You know, like, what was one? I think it was called Dark City with Kiefer Sutherland, or you know, whatever that was, where they would change they were like in this matrix, and they thought it was real, and they would come down at night. These like archonic entities that would change the matrix to keep people thinking that they were in a reality, in some real, and not realize they're in a sim. Well, it's the same thing with these lower 4D entities that are feeding off of human suffering and human emotion. They don't want everyone to escape. They can't exist without the human food, what some people call loosh. You know, the loosh, you know, which is the energy that emits out of the negative emotions. So they will allow a certain percentage, but I believe, and this is just my belief, it may or may not be true, but this is years and years. I've been researching for probably at least 30 years or more these concepts, and practicing different arts and meditations for 30 years or so. What people are calling the event or the ascension will be a collective rainbow body, a collective shift. And this may or may not happen in our lifetime. I believe it will, because as more and more people wake up, it does affect the collective, and it is affecting. So what people are calling the solar flash, it could just be that source white light energy penetrating and filling this realm with that higher pure bliss light. and we could all transcend together. Now, it may not affect all life on this planet. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to. But I'm seeing these signs, the signs of the times, we'll call it. And there is a lot of evidence that we are shifting into, 5D, what people are calling 5D, which is more so light body, living from the heart, being connected to all things, and remembering who we truly are, remembering our true self. So generally, to attain this rainbow body, or light body, in this realm, in this form, you take your body with you. You transform it. If anyone ever saw that movie Powder, there's a couple movies where they kind of show this concept. Crystals are very cooling. We're in some fiery times, so if you put the crystal on your third eye, it'll really cool you down quick. So in that movie Powder, where he had these abilities that most humans didn't have, these healing powers, or the power to connect different consciousness. And if you remember at the end of the movie, if you seeing, he was running through that field. Yeah, it's that light body where he was running, and as he ran through that field, you could see that energy building, and then boom, that flash of white light, and he disappeared. He just went out into the infinite the infinite light. That's a form of rainbow body. Yes, a Venaletta light. That's a nice name. It is. It does seem to be getting more difficult to use the heart in the world, but we're in challenging times. But believe me, you're living more in your heart than you know. Anytime you feel the love, the bliss, the compassion, the connection to anything, anyone, you're directly in the heart in that moment. And throughout the day, it helps to put your awareness into the heart center. Just close your eyes, breathe deep, and feel your awareness there. That's where the bliss is. That's where the mind rests. The mind emanates out. In the Taoist, the Eastern philosophies, they don't say the mind is up here. That's the brain. The spirit actually resides in the crystal core of the brain, but the spirit, the consciousness, but the mind is here in the center, in the middle Dantian, the middle path, the Emerald Palace, the threefold flames. So yes, the more it's very beneficial to throughout the day put your awareness in the heart, and don't judge yourself. I've been training for 30 years in different arts, and I still get aggravated, and I still have a threshold. It's part of the shift, is anything that's there to be released, it's gonna come out now. There's just no way to no way that you can't be feeling on a deep level. And we call it negative, but it's not negative can be a good thing, like negative ions. The negative is the dark, the feminine. It's obviously, you don't want to walk around being angry because it affects your temple. It serves you and humanity on a higher level to be in joy and to be living from the heart and compassion. But if there's anything that needs to be released, anything that we need to purge, and I had a form of purging earlier today, because there's these alignments, these eclipse portals are pulling out anything that needs to come out. any way that it can. So part of the realization that we are in some kind of simulation, you know, what some people will say the mind of man, that's an imagination, it's the imaging, the images of the projection from the source into the void. So once the Taoists realized that all of reality is based on these 64 codes. Now Terence McKenna took these 64 codes from the I Ching and hired a mathematician and a computer programmer and wrote software, a program around these 64 codes, and it ended up projecting into a computer simulation all time as it throughout all of history. And that time he called it time wave 0 or something like that, because the whole sequence ended in 2012 in the calendar that this software created. So he didn't believe that time itself was going to end in 2012, just that it was the unknown, like we would transition into a whole new reality, which, you know, that did happen in 2012. We shifted into a new realm, and it was a rebirth, and everything has been accelerating and shifting since. And you know, especially this year, you know, especially with these online communities and world communities realizing that this reality is not what it seems, and even the flat Earth movement, you know, all the videos in that movement are after 2012. People are realizing that this realm is not what it seems. That people, the acceleration of the awakening has really accelerated since 2012, and in 2016-17 into this year, especially with these eclipses, and into the major lunar eclipse, which will be on the full blood moon next Friday. This is really going to trigger and release and purge. And yeah, I have done fasting, Megan, and yeah, that fasting does help the body speed up any kind of purging. And you can purge in dreams. You know, a lot of people will wake up, you know, if you're sweating, you know, that's a form of purging. And any releases you have, you know, you do purge quicker in that dream state because your body is more relaxed and it's in that homeostasis. Yes, tea is the medicine. I've been drinking pu'er tea for the last few hours, but I do tea ceremonies, the 5 elements of tea, and you know, it's a 3-hour ceremony. We call it tea party because it's fun. It's nothing serious, but you get tea drunk when you go through the different kinds of teas. Your body, as it's detoxing and accelerant, you get kind of into a high, you know, into a altered state without the paranoia, thank goodness. Most of the time, I should say. You know, paranoia can creep up at any moment, because the paranoia is really a sign that your consciousness is shifting in between timelines and between realms. Yeah. So basically, when the Taoists realized that we were in some kind of programmed simulation, you can call it, in some kind of story, they thought, well, is it possible to transcend or free yourself from this program? Because they realized, based on these 64 codes, they were different frequencies. So each hexagram symbolizes a different aspect of code. That they formed a practice on how to free yourself from that program. They call it the fortune you know, that's where fortune tellers came from. You know, now we say fortune is more like wealth, but fortune also means the future, to foretell, fortune. You know, fortune, we say tune, but it, you know, it's this frequency, it's a sound. So if you look up, you know, fortune, you know, like a tune, fortune. You got the number 4, or what is it for, you know, or forefathers, you know, what came before, you know, the fortune is the future, you know, telling the future. Fortune tellers would tell you what's going to happen in the future. So they used these coins with symbols on them, and then they would throw the coins, these fortune tellers, these ancient Taoists and Buddhists. So they realize if you can tell the future, that future is basically written in stone. But they also believe you can change the future. You can also change the past, you know, resonating from the present. So to be able to free yourself from this program, or from the program of what we call the Matrix. Now the Matrix also is an ancient word. It wasn't invented, you know, with Keanu Reeves' character. No, it's an ancient word, matrika, la matrika, the matrix. Ma is water, and tricks, trika, silly rabbit. Tricks are for kids. I just saw someone that Megan have a cup of tea, must have a cup of tea from Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, the British fell in love with tea. Many wars have been fought over tea. You know, the opium wars in China were over tea. The Tea Party, you know, the Boston Tea Party, that was all about taxing tea. It's like, you're not taxing my tea, man. You know, I can't live without my tea. Tea has penetrated into all cultures around the world. But that tricks, you know, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. That was the white rabbit. And tricks, why was tricks for kids? You know, the magic tricks came from tricks. You know, magi, matrix. The MA is always water. You know, it's water symbolism. Marine, Mary, Virgin Mary. You know, for blood, liver, flukes, sorry, I'm trying to answer as many questions as I can, but any green tea would be good for anything with the liver or the blood. Dragon well is a strong tea, but dream purging, you know, purging in your dreams, you know, doing any dream work, like lucid dreaming, you can really do some major releasing. See, purging is a release, it's a letting go. So in the Taoist practice, you know, the highest arts are the practices of letting go. So back to, real quick, with the tricks, you know, why were tricks for children? You know, for one, children love magic tricks, but tricks means divinity or sacred or the divine. You know, the Trinity came from the same. So if you think Trinity, the three, you know, with the X marks the spot, which was also the cross, but the divine, because the children are pure, they're closer to the source, they're closer to the truth, and the rabbit was an adult rabbit. You know, it's like, yeah, you can't experience, you know, it's just the elites playing tricks on humans. You know, the elites that came up with that. You know, they use all these corporations, you know, cereal, you're seeing the symbolism throughout, you know, all products and Hollyweird and But that symbolism of the white rabbit, you know, that's the eclipse, not the eclipse, but the equinox. You know, the white rabbit, you know, fall down the rabbit hole, you know, which is the matrix. The rabbit hole is endless. So the British, they fell in love with tea. So that's, I mean, why they included the Tea Party in Alice in Wonderland. Lewis Carroll, I think, wrote it, but he was an initiate into a secret society that knew about these symbolisms. That and not so much. I know, like a lot of people, you know, want to say, you know, all these secret societies are worshiping the devil and this Luciferian thing. Yeah, a lot of the secret societies got penetrated by the reptilian and the Luciferian, the Satanists and that, but that does not mean that all secret societies and all mystery schools are evil and worshiping the dark and all this stuff. You know, a lot of the Christian belief systems are based on pagan beliefs and these ancient Egyptian rituals and whatnot. But the matrix, the divine water, see, for Source to experience itself, it had to create emptiness and form, the void and the light. The matrix. So there was a true matrix, you know, there was a matrix that was like the Eden, because 5D is a true, it's a pure matrix. It's the waters, you know, the divine waters of the non-physical water. See, there's the, and all the Taoist teachings, you have to think of the physical and the non-physical. You know, the energy that you feel, the energy that you see, the energy that's unseen. It's like Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda books would talk about, there's the known, the unknown, and then the unknowable. Which the unknowable, you are the unknowable, you are the unknown, you are the known. That's the Trinity too. So the unknowable, which is the true God, is what we call the great mystery, that which is beyond all concepts. What is what the ancients would refer to as God or Source. Yeah, Lisa Harrison's cool. I like her work. But that feeling of falling is pretty common when you open up the central channel. So you might either experience it as you shift to a higher realm, a spinning like a vortex, or a feeling of falling, which is very common. Yeah, Lisa, Aluna Ashes, I like her work too. A lot of the feminine energy is really coming out. Like most of my life back in the, especially in the beginning of my spiritual transition and practices, which started back in the 80s. I was born in 73, so some of my first experiences with ETs, dolphin, you know, these alternative new age type stuff. In my teens, you know, I bought a book, I think when I was 13, called ETs, Angels and Extraterrestrial, or Dolphins, ETs and Angels, or something like that. But I was always into, even as a child, Native American art. I used to have Bev Doolittle's paintings hanging on my wall when I was a kid. I used to get Ranger Rick. And there was an episode, I actually met Bev Doolittle. If you haven't seen her work, check her out. I mean, her work's phenomenal. She was at years ago at a art gallery in Mentor, Ohio, and I went to see her, and I actually gave her, I used to make Native American flutes, and I did this one, and I carved a horse head and at the end, and did wood carvings and wood burning, and I gave her as a gift this flute, and she was like, wow, you know, that's awesome. And it, you know, but if you look her up, she always has things hidden within her images, like I mean, her art is phenomenal. Like, as you can see, that these guys on horse, there's faces in the rocks. You'll have the one that I always had this one on my wall. So as you can see, you know, this shaman Native American, and the reflection of the water is a grizzly bear. Cool stuff like that. See the eagle in the snow reflection. I mean, just phenomenal stuff. But to see it in person, I mean, her work is just, there she is there with one of her paintings. That's not a very good image. But she's done hundreds of paintings that they're all phenomenal. Oh, here's another. I had one of these hanging on my wall, a painting of that. The bison, Wakantanka. Here she is, with a little hawk. Or that's a falcon, I think. Let's go back here. But I'm going to have to end this here in a few minutes because I have to hit the road. I think I said everything I wanted to say. This might be the last live stream before the blood moon, so I just wanted to give you all a heads up, and I may try to do something. That's next Friday, this coming Friday, the 27th will be the full lunar eclipse with the blood moon, the full moon. So real quick, I just want to let you know, if you feel that spinning, one of the best things you could do is ground yourself. If you go to a tree, you know, you can actually tie yourself to a tree, hug a tree, sit with your back to a tree, bare feet on the earth, in the dirt if you can. Yeah, because that's very common. When I first started training in Kunlun, I would start spinning and roll under tables. It was really weird. I mean, and then there were sometimes, as I got deeper into my practice and then started practicing some of the higher arts, I would wake up in the middle of the night and just be spinning a million miles an hour, and for an hour or two at a time, which is not fun while you're going through it. I mean, you get real, I would get real nauseous and just have to just keep spitting so I wouldn't project into the realm. But yeah, that's just part of the purging, part of the releasing, letting go. And as you shift your magnetic field, you know, that Merkaba field in the center of your being. Thanks, Megan. Thank you, Chris, Cheryl, Tricia. Thanks everyone for joining me. But yeah, you just ground into the earth, you know, drink tea. That would always help me. Get the good stuff. Get the loose leaf pu'er tea, P-U-E-R-H. You can just look that up, pu'er. Aroma tea. When I was in San Francisco a few years back after Shasta, we trained up in Mount Shasta. I've been very blessed to be able to go to these sacred places to train with my Sifu. He guided me to, you know, Portland and Mount Shasta, then Sedona, all these sacred vortexes. it's been a blessing, and I look forward to as many people that can join me in this transition, in this transformation. I appreciate everyone for joining me in these live events. I do it for you. It brings me joy that to connect with fellow lightworkers, starseeds, and truthers. And I hope to do more connecting. I've been trying to figure out the technology to connect with other lightworkers and starseeds through this video stuff. Took me a long time to figure out this Streamlabs. Now I think I might be able to use Zoom to get other people on this show to hear their stories and connect with other lightworkers and starseeds, truthers, to bring their message out to the world. Yeah, I'm grateful for everyone that leaves comments, everyone that likes the videos, shares the videos. I have this vision of a healing retreat I want to build in Ecuador, Vilcabamba. So I have a video out there on some more information on that, and if anyone wants to get involved in something like that. I was also looking with one of my team on buying some land out by Sedona and starting a healing retreat or commune, whatever. You know, place for, you know, all the light workers to join. Yeah, the whirling dervishes, those were actually one of our gold dragons in our lineage, Kahn in Japan. He trained with the Sufis. The whirling dervishes were is an Islamic tradition where they spin until they stand still, or until they feel like they're standing still. Thank you, Lucy. Thanks, Megan, Chris, Nanette, everyone, Megan, everyone that joined me tonight. I appreciate you all. Have an amazing and beautiful week with these eclipse corridors, these eclipse portals. Enjoy the blood moon, the full moon. Stay in the heart. Stay grounded into the earth. Smile, smile, smile. Ground, ground, ground. That's what my Sufi, or my Sifu. It's funny, Sifu, teacher in Chinese, and Sufi, the Sufi was a mystical Islamic tradition. That was beautiful. Safe travels, my friends. Thank you. I appreciate all for coming. Much love. I love you all. I connect to you all through my heart and through these technologies and through the connection of the World Wide Web, the interwebs that connects us all through the physical technology, but we're also connected in the non-physical, the energy, the emotional highways and byways, and the loving energy that we're all transmitting out into this realm. So keep shining your lights brightly, my friends. Keep sending your love, light, and infinite source light. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu. I take refuge in the Buddha of infinite light and infinite light. Be well, my friends. Much love and light.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.